Welcome to Life Esteem, a program committed to deliver information that's important to you and your community. Your hosts are Nathaniel and Patricia Gadsden.
Hello and welcome to Life Esteem. Always great to have you as a viewer. Hey, today we're going to talk about autism. It's a condition that affects thousands and thousands of families here in this area and millions throughout the country. And we have two wonderful people to join us today. We have Lisa Fulton and also Kay Lipsitz. And I'm so glad you're both here. Yes. And both of you represent your own agencies.
Yes.
So tell us about your agency, Lisa.
Thank you. And thank you again for having us. Actually, I'm just a parent who decided to just do a little bit more.
Okay.
So besides being on different boards, the Autism Society of Greater Harrisburg and PEN, of course, K's, and then a seat, I also decided to start my own Parents Connecting Against Autism, LLC.
Okay, beautiful. All right. And Kay?
Thank you for having us here today. Parent Education Network is a parent training and information center. We are mandated under the Individuals with Disability Education Act. Congress said that they had heard from their constituents that parents felt that they needed an organization that would help to provide resources and support to parents who have children with disabilities. PEN serves 23 counties in eastern central Pennsylvania, including Philadelphia. And our primary role is to support parents who have children with disabilities from birth to age 26.
I'm really glad to hear that. I don't know if I was familiar specifically as to your charge and what you were doing, but could you give us, Kay, some ideas of what kind of resources or services you can provide families?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. PEN has a wealth of resources that we have collected over many years, and we're always improving and always looking for new, because new research is always coming out in terms of disabilities. And also the regulations change periodically in terms of the provision of services to students with disabilities. So we have a lot of written information to provide to parents as well as those who are supporting and serving those students. Okay. So we have a lot of resources for educators and for providers, but our primary focus is to provide parents with resources. We also have a toll-free 800 telephone number where parents can call us, and it won't cost them anything, to talk with one of our parent support persons who will provide them with another person to listen to, and also to refer them to agencies such as Lisa's, who can provide them with some local support.
Good. And Lisa, you're a parent?
I am a parent with a son.
Okay,
a son, Dana, diagnosed at 3. He's now, well, he'll be 16 in a couple months.
Okay.
So it was the reason why I wanted to create my own was because I wanted to have that more personal connection. Although Autism Society and PEN, they have those services and they have those supports. When I started out, I didn't know what to do. Right. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. And so I want to kind of be that person that's able to assist a parent through finding maybe Kay, or me going to advocate for them for their child's educational rights. So with that, I made a slogan for the foundation, which is my son's name, Dedicated Awareness Nonstop Advocacy. And under that falls the awareness, the assistance, and the advocacy part of everything, because it's difficult. Denial is a big key issue, and it is very difficult. When I first got the diagnosis, although I knew in my heart, hearing it out loud is tough. And so when you're not a parent who's ready to go out there and find it, it can really put you or get you down.
Sure.
So I was one of those parents who figured I need to find out as much as I can, and I did that. And so I kind of want to do that for other parents. Good. And just kind of be that support, not just with parents, but with school districts and agencies, PEN, because there are times when I get a parent that may call me, and I might not know about a specific disability. You know, I know autism is one thing, but I might call Kay even in that aspect and say, you know, can you help her, or can you send somebody to the IEP or whatever. So I think it's important for all of us to partner. all of us to partner together.
Now, we had been talking about some statistics out there and the number of families that have
Right.
children that have autism. And I think you said it was 1 in how many?
It's 1 in 50 now.
1 in 50.
My son was born in '97.
Uh-huh.
He was diagnosed in 2001, and at that point it was 1 in 500.
Wow.
A couple years later, it went to 1 in 150. Then a couple years after that, 1 in 91 to 1 in 88, and in a year's time frame,
Okay.
1 in 50.
1 in 50.
But
Wow.
Kelly, I got to ask a question though, based on what Lisa just shared with us. So, what is the root cause? I mean, is it just that we're discovering more people, or is it something else happening? Is it,
We don't
Is it
know.
environment or?
dietary? What's going on?
I would have to defer to Lisa. She's probably done more research. There have been conflicting opinions
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
There have been opinions
Yeah.
where parents have been very vigilant and vocal in terms of the vaccines that are given to students, diet, the environment, and I'll defer to Lisa
Sure.
with that information.
That's
but there's
a great
conflicting.
question because we don't know, and she's right. We don't know, and a lot of people do say, "Oh, the vaccines." Even myself at first, but as I got to know more and learn more, and got to know my son more, being on the spectrum,
Okay.
I can't say that I believe that it's totally the vaccines. I have 7 boys in my family now diagnosed,
Wow.
and not all of them were given vaccines. I know my cousin was just here from Maryland and said that her son just finished
Wow.
them because she spread them out so much.
Yeah.
But he was still diagnosed at 4 years old.
Help us to understand, for those parents who are not familiar with this, discussion. What does it mean to be on the spectrum? What is that?
It's probably the largest disability, I think, autism, which could be ADHD,
Okay.
ADD, PDD.
Okay.
We have so many acronyms.
Yeah.
Autism and its different varieties of higher to lower function, Asperger's.
Asperger's, yeah.
And it's just so much, the range is so long.
So it could be any one of those things.
It
and
could
that
be
would
any one of those
put you
things,
into
but on the spectrum,
On
right?
On the spectrum.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay. Now, being on the spectrum, in any of those, okay, allows you to have certain rights to benefits and so forth. Okay, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, there are 13 categories under the federal education or under IDEA, and autism is the primary category. Now, there are students that are diagnosed with on the autism spectrum that would probably fall under the autism category. But there are 13 categories, and autism is one of those categories.
Okay.
Under the federal regulations, where a student, once they're identified, if they were identified as a student needing specially designed instruction and related services, then the school would work with the parent in a team to develop what's called an individualized education plan.
Yeah.
That IEP word.
IEP, yeah, I know that word.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
IEP, that makes you stronger.
And the IEP is a collaborative effort, is that right? I
It's a
mean, so
team effort.
It's a team
Yeah.
effort, so,
Yeah.
okay. And
And-
for those parents who, they may be going through this, but they're resistant, they're afraid to approach the school, this kind of thing. Help them understand why the IEP is so important
I'll let
to
you start,
developing the
Kay.
child. Yeah.
That's what you do.
The IEP is extremely important in terms of you're having a specific plan, which is developed based on the results and the information that is in an evaluation. First of all, the child is evaluated, and the parent is part of that evaluation process. The school should be collecting information from you as a student's parent. If the parent has had the child for an independent evaluation, they may ask for you to disclose that information, to share with them, because the more information you have, the more wealth of information you're going to have in terms of developing programming and supports and services for the student. The plan is, as you said, a team approach where the school will have the student evaluated with your input, and then you will review the evaluation report, and from that report is the foundation for the development of the plan. That would really be building the goals and providing the related services and the supports to help the child to benefit and make progress. And I think that that's significantly important. It's not enough for the child to be receiving special education and being a student who is eligible for an IEP, but the student should be benefiting and the student should be making meaningful progress. Okay, and that's really crucial, because if a student isn't making progress, then the team needs to get back together and say, maybe we need some further evaluating, or maybe we need to provide some
Update the
different
goals.
instruction,
Or update the
make
goals.
some changes, because
Yeah.
you don't just keep doing the
No.
same thing year after year.
Yeah.
And the IEP is reviewed on an annual basis, but anytime during the year, if the child is not making progress or there are problems, then the parent should
Can request
notify
one.
the school and have an IEP
And
meeting.
that's what a lot of parents don't know.
That-
You
you're right.
can
Yeah.
request as many IEPs and meetings as you want. You
Okay.
are your child's best advocate. And if something's not right, and if the things aren't working, you need to give that input to let them know, this is
Yeah.
not working, let's try something else.
Let me ask you, Lisa, when you talk about your son, you said he was diagnosed at 3. What were some of the things that you observed and noticed that made you know that there was something that you needed to explore further?
At first,
Those are good
I
questions.
can't say that I even noticed. My dad would take him on a walk every Friday afternoon. And he came back to me and said, Lisa, Dana's having these Legos and he's just clicking them. I'm thinking, every child clicks.
Yeah, so
He's
what's
only
the
a
deal?
baby. He doesn't know what to do with the Legos yet. But then I noticed he wasn't responding to me if I were to direct him somewhere. He wasn't speaking to me. If I were to say a word, he wouldn't say anything. And then, of course, the eating habits. He was just drinking milk. And we know milk can be one of those things that they crave a lot. And then ear infections. He kept having ear infection over ear infection over ear infection. And I couldn't understand what all these things were going. He wasn't talking. He was just looking straight through me. And so I went to his pediatrician immediately. And I said, something's wrong.
Okay.
And I remember him saying to me at one point, about the MMR shot. Now,
Oh,
he
really?
talked, now he didn't
What kind of, I didn't hear that, about the what? now?
MMR, the measles, mumps,
Oh,
rubella.
okay.
The one vaccine that everybody
The half
says.
vaccine, yeah.
But just as a good physician, he was just kind of giving me the things that new moms should know.
Okay.
And luckily, he has a child on the spectrum.
Oh,
Wow.
all right.
So
Trigger.
he was able to then say, if you're concerned, we need to look into it. And he did that. Although he got me through to the IU, there was a year's waiting list. So in the meantime, he got my son some speech therapy through Polyclinic. And until that time, I was able to at least get him to use PEC books so that I could understand his needs and his wants at that point.
Amazing.
You know what I think about college graduates, blah, blah, blah. Think about those parents out there who are intimidated. They haven't gone to school. They don't read. They're not, they're not connected, and they're thinking, And so how do you reach them? Because I know oftentimes they're just afraid, or they don't know what information is. I remember, Lisa, you said before we began to tape that, you had a friend who said, well, there's nothing in Maryland. And you said, well, got on the phone and found all these services in Maryland, And so that happens quite a bit. Do they find you, or how do you find them?
Yeah. Oftentimes we get calls from parents who say that the minister at their church or somebody at their church gently told them that they suspected that maybe the child has some issues that, and here's the name of someone who could maybe give you some help and give you some direction. It's very sensitive. That's a very sensitive, as you said, that's a very sensitive place that a lot of parents are. Some parents very early on recognize that something's not developmentally the way it should be. If a parent has multiple children, they might say, well, gee, my other kid spoke much earlier. Why is he not talking? And why he seems to hear me? Is it his hearing? We had his hearing checked. He hears me. Why isn't he responding to the other children in the family or family members? And they will come to terms with that much easier. They will recognize it much easier if they have other children. For families who maybe this is their first child, they go to their pediatrician, and some pediatricians may say, well, some kids are late bloomers.
Yeah.
And,
I hear that. I heard that.
and you know, they're a late bloomer, and the parent will say, well, gee, something just doesn't seem to be right, but the doctor says everything's okay, so give it time. So I think that some parents in their heart of heart know when they see another child the same age as their child, why isn't my child doing developmentally that these other children are doing? And then their child becomes frustrated, and they become frustrated with behavioral issues that they're trying to navigate for their child. And they may even have their child in a daycare setting, and the daycare folks may even bring it to the parents' attention that the child developmentally is not doing what the other children are doing, and may give them some ideas of things that they can do to improve. But the earlier parents get information, and I have heard from other parents that once they have their child evaluated and someone says what they perceive as the issue with the child, the parents feel a sense of relief just from the standpoint that, wow, I'm not crazy. You know, there really is an issue here. And then in the day of electronics, we can go to Google, we can go places and find out, and we can also connect with other parents. There's a wonderful organization called Parent to Parent, who parents talk with other parents who have a child with a similar disability. And for those parents, it's like, wow, you've experienced the same thing, and this is where you got help. That element of hope, I'm not alone, and that what I'm perceiving is a reality, and that I can obtain resources, and I'm not alone. There are other people. And when we connect parents who have a young child with a parent who has an older child with a similar disability, and they're moving along through life, it gives that parent hope.
Is it true, you know, labeling is always a problem for people. You know, I don't want my child to be labeled. I don't want to be. So are the schools, and I know they're doing a great job, but when the child is diagnosed, okay, you know, Lisa, you know, your son's moving through, do you feel like he's labeled, or how do you feel that they handle that? How does he handle it?
I don't think, and you know, that's, I would love to know how he thinks, but unfortunately he can't explain to me how he feels. But I will say that they've done a great job. We're through Susquehanna Township. However, my son's educated through Capital Area Intermediate Unit. So his school, his classroom is located at Hershey Middle. So he actually, because that's what they do, they rent out spaces throughout central Pennsylvania for those children that are close with on the same diagnosis or what have you. And so they've done a great job at including him and with typical children with specials like you know, gym or he was in a chorus before and things like that. Even though he has like a peer buddy, but they give him that one-on-one attention that he needs because he can't really transition into a regular classroom. And I think that's important, and that's important for parents to know when their child can transition and when they can't. And some people would just say, okay, because you know, the team said so. So that's not the case. That is not the case. And Parent to Parent, Parent to Parent is a great resource. I found them by accident. And actually, I'm a peer parent. So now they'll call me and say, I have a parent moving into the area with the same diagnosis or similar to your son. Can you help them navigate through
that's real good.
the area? And that's what they do.
You know, before we get off, we definitely want to get some contact information. So why don't we do that right now, and then we'll do it again. Now, give us your contact information for your agency.
Yes, Parent Education Network. Our number, we have a toll-free number. It's 1-800-522-5827. Or you can contact us via email, which is pen@parentednet.org.
Say it again, pen.
PEN, Parent Education Network, or PEN, that is 1-800-522-5827. 888-888-2827 or pen@parentednet.org.
And believe me, people will ask me, they'll say,
Yeah.
what was that number again?
Sure, I'm the same way.
Yes, thank
Trust
you so
me.
much. Okay.
Well, I'm fairly new, so mine's is still under construction, but because I'm on several boards
Okay.
in the area, including PENS, I can be reached through them.
Wonderful.
But my main one is with the Autism Society of Greater Harrisburg, which I've served on for many years.
Oh, okay.
I can be reached there at www.autismharrisburg.com.
Great, excellent. Okay, autismharrisburg.com.
Yeah, we want people to know, because I'm
Yeah.
sure there are other parents, family members, maybe have some thinking too that that's something not is developmentally off track, and
Right.
wanting to get some better
Sure.
appreciation as to
Right.
what maybe needs to be considered and how to move forth with that.
Sure.
I like the fact you mentioned about the church also.
Yeah.
Oh, of
And I thought
course.
that was good because one thing that hit me was that all of us have to become advocates. We all have to be part of
course.
the,
Yes.
of the solution. So how can we all, those of us who are listening, let's say we belong to churches, civic organizations, what can we do to assist with this, with this community concern?
My church has actually done a great job. I
And your
go to
church
a member
is?
of the Greater Zion Missionary Baptist
Great
Church.
church.
And I tell you, Pastor Miley has done a great job at including our children with disabilities. He has held several, we have a ministry, a mental health ministry. He has created different workshops and conferences that we were able to do in the church for our children. He has wanting to bring in like Baton and places to help our daycare, to be able to deal with our children. And he has said openly, bring your children
right now.
to church. If they want to get up and walk around, then let them get up and walk around.
You know, I'm so glad you said that
That
because
is
so many
so-
parents will say, well, I'm not going to come again. He just won't sit still. Bring him anyhow.
Bring them
Yes.
anyhow. And he has been, and it's probably because, he's married to my aunt, so
Yeah.
he has a personal connection,
Right.
but he's learning from Dana.
Yeah.
And he saw that there was a great need. There are a lot of children in our church on the spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
A lot, and our members feel comfortable now, and so they do that. And now we have other churches in the area wanting to get their members to know more about it.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
and that's
great.
important.
Now, you said something earlier, Lisa, and you talked about in your family, there's 7.
There are 7
okay,
now.
Boys that are
Boys.
somewhere been identified on the
On
spectrum.
the spectrum.
And there seems to be this whole thing that boys tend to be outnumbered in regard to being diagnosed. That's what I've heard. Is that true?
That is true. Although
Okay.
girls are coming up there,
Are
but
they?
boys are. It's more like boys are the main focus. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a gene. I'm thinking it's a gene somewhere. I definitely think that
Yeah.
in my family, because it's on both sides.
Okay.
My son is a product of both grandparents, and on my grandfather's side, there are two, and on my grandmother's side, there are 4, and Dana's the product of both.
Right.
Wow.
And so, and they're all on all levels of the spectrum. Some of them are ADHD, some are ADD. Most of them, and I think 4 of them are, or 5 of them are have been diagnosed with autism, whether it's mild to moderate,
Yeah.
low, high, but they're all on the spectrum, and they're all like 2 years apart from Dana. So he's the oldest, and then I have 2 in Maryland, 1 in Chicago, and then 2 more here.
Wow.
And 1 in Ohio, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'd like for you to explain, someone just asked me this question just recently, last couple of days, is what is ADD versus ADHD? I know, and I was sharing with that, but some people are confused and they hear just ADD.
I think ADD, and you can help me with that one. I think that is higher than ADHD. ADHD is more of not being able to keep on task. They have some repetitive, some issues with behavior because they can't keep on task. But I think ADD is more of a is it more
Focus.
focus?
Focus.
More like persuasive development disorder.
Okay.
They're closer to PDD because they're more focused. They got to have that routine. They've got to be.
Right.
They're more centered than somebody with ADHD is.
One thing I'm picking up on is because you're in this, you really know this field, don't you guys?
Yeah,
I mean, you really
Yeah.
begin to know all the terms.
All the
and
terms
yeah,
and
this
everything.
is
Now,
good.
somebody just asked me that just the other day, and
Yeah.
it's interesting when you said ADD, and I was trying to explain as
Yeah.
well as what you did in regard
Yeah.
to the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathy.
There's also an organization called NICHI, which is the National Information Center for Children with Disability. It's a dissemination center that has a wealth of resources for parents, and they have a lot of information that are disability specific. They have a lot of videos for parents who really need to see some action, and for
course.
students, and I think that that's really helpful too. Helping them to be able to communicate more effectively with the school. So for parents who really are questioning the disability, you can always, go to your computer, but NICHI, the National NICHCY has a wealth of resources, and they're all free for parents to obtain resources about a particular disability. And they have them in English and Spanish, which is really helpful.
As you can see, we have tons of acronyms in
Yes,
our community, and it's hard to figure out.
know.
I
I know.
remember what, and Batan's one of them too,
I know,
and
I
we have
know.
to sit there and be like, okay, what's,
I know
what's
parents will
what?
say, I felt like I stepped into a foreign land. They
Yeah.
were speaking in tongues that I was unfamiliar.
But now, and most of these resources, if not all, they're free. Is that
Of
true?
course.
Okay,
Right.
so this is free
Right.
to the parents. Because people
Right.
oftentimes think,
They don't
well, yeah, they don't know. We have a big movement afoot about fathers being more engaged with their families. And so we have what's called the Fatherhood Academy, because there's so many absent fathers, So every single
Fantastic.
Monday night at the Neighborhood Center, 3rd and Kelker Street, we have this group of men that meet.
Oh,
It's the father. I would
fantastic.
love to have you both come in and talk about
I would
this issue.
love to.
Absolutely. We got to get you in.
That
Yeah.
is
Sure just did a piece
fantastic.
on the men of Omega Psi Phi, who
Okay.
actually did the walk this year for the
Okay.
autism walk, and want to be a part of that.
Fantastic,
That
yeah.
that whole thing with men and being involved, and that's great. I would love to come.
Well,
I will definitely be there.
I've extended the invitation.
Fantastic. Well,
Definitely.
thank
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Definitely.
Penn does have an initiative focused on literacy, and one of our main outreach activities is dads and their involvement with literacy and reading with their child and fostering that relationship. So,
But the superhero in this area, of course, is Floyd Stokes, who is called
Yes.
Super Reader.
Yeah.
And he does all that,
Fantastic.
so we always hats off to
Fantastic.
Floyd.
He does what
It's
was it, the
He
500
does the
men
500 men
reading?
reading.
Fantastic.
Yeah, now we're getting ready to do a flash mob. In fact, as we're taping this.
Really?
Yeah, flash mob. in the different
Wonderful.
schools. We've run out of time, but I want to thank you both for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Real quick, that number one more time. Your phone number?
1-800-522-5827.
Okay, and you can be reached at the
www.autismharrisburg.com.
Lisa and Kay, fantastic. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you
coming
so
on.
much.
I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you also for watching this program, and we know that you will become an advocate as well. It may not be a child in your family, but it's a child in your neighborhood, a child in your community. You need to be a part of the solution. Thank you so much for watching Life Esteem. See you next time. Be blessed.